Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geostrategic Podcast.
For this deep dive, we're talking about a 40-mile stretch of dirt and swamp and forest that could literally be the trigger point for World War III. We are analyzing the Gallant Boar 2026 exercises.
Challenge accepted on the mission brief. We will stick entirely to your voice and mine, and we are diving straight into the geostrategy.
Perfect.
So to truly grasp why Gallant Boar 2026, or Brave Boar, depending on the translation, matters so much, you have to picture an hourglass. Just visualize that incredibly narrow neck in the middle where all the sand has to squeeze through.
Right, the Suwalki corridors can easily unfold. It is a dense, really complex environment.
So the military maneuver kicking off there right now isn't just some generic training exercise.
Yeah.
From June 16th to the 26th of 2026, we are seeing a massive convergence of military personnel from Lithuania, Poland, and France.
Right.
The Lithuanian Armed Forces are deploying the MCG Infantry Brigade and the Grand Duke of Lithuania Budagadis Dragoon Battalion.
That is a serious deployment.
Yeah, and the Polish Armed Forces are rolling in the 16th Pomeranian Mechanized Division. They are pulling brigades from cities like Marag Bartosi's Brnio and Jejuko, and they are not just bringing aging surplus gear to these woods either.
No, they absolutely are not.
They are actively testing the combat effectiveness of Borsuk infantry fighting vehicles and checking the accuracy of K9 howitzers. So let's unpack this. If this is simply routine exercise, why bring out the absolute newest, shiniest tactical toys like the Borsuk IFVs and those K9 howitzers?
Well, that is the million-dollar question.
Like, is this strictly about training, or is this a heavily armed message aimed at someone specific watching from across the border?
Oh, it is heavily armed messaging, for sure. You know, in geostrategy, capabilities speak way louder than words. Honing rapid and effective defense isn't just practice. It's a broadcast of interoperability between Lithuanian, Polish, and French forces.
Right. It shows they can actually work together.
Exactly. And the inclusion of that specific hardware tells us a great deal. The Borsuk isn't just a standard armored troop carrier. It is a highly advanced, fully amphibious vehicle.
Oh, an amphibious vehicle.
Yeah. And why does that matter in the Suwalki corridor? Because that specific 40-mile gap is riddled with lakes and rivers and bogs and incredibly dense woodlands.
It's mud, basically.
It is entirely mud. By deploying an amphibious fighting vehicle, the Polish military is signaling to anyone watching that they can maneuver rapidly through the exact terrain that an adversary might assume would slow a defense down.
So they were essentially saying your swamps won't stop us.
Precisely.
And the K9 howitzers send a similar message, right? These are highly mobile artillery pieces. You shoot and you scoop before the enemy can calculate where the shell came from and fire back.
Yep, shoot and scoop.
If this were purely about keeping troops busy with routine drills, you wouldn't risk moving your absolute most advanced top-tier mechanized tech into the mud. You put that specific hardware at that specific bottleneck to broadcast a very specific message.
You do. Gallant Boar 2026 serves two distinct functions. The first is just operational reality. A French communications array has to seamlessly talk to a Polish mechanized unit which is supporting a Lithuanian infantry flank. Interoperability is incredibly difficult to achieve without physical practice.
Sure, he has to work out the kinks.
Right. But the second function is deterrence through visible lethality. You bring the amphibious IFVs and the mobile artillery to physically demonstrate that any attempt to close the Suwałki Gap will be met with a technologically overwhelming, rapid, and brutal response.
You make it look terrifying on purpose.
Exactly. You raise the perceived cost of an attack so high that an adversary decides it just isn't worth the gamble.
But that cost calculus changes when we look at the adversary's actual objective. Because the reason these specific heavy weapons are at this specific bottleneck isn't really about fighting over a few miles of land. It's connected to what the last updates reveal about the Kremlin's actual strategy.
And that strategy completely subverts the traditional idea of an invasion.
Right. The latest info indicates the Kremlin is planning provocations in the Baltic states. And the tactic involves using the guise of protecting Russians to create a pretext for war or a hybrid attack.
Which is a classic move for them.
Yeah, the crucial insight from the news is that the Russians are not really focusing on territory, but rather on testing NATO's unity.
This is the essence of hybrid warfare or gray zone conflict. It relies entirely on ambiguity.
So what does this all mean for you and me? It sounds like a geopolitical stress test, like a hacker probing a firewall, not to immediately crash the whole system, but to see if the security team is actually paying attention and working together.
Yeah. That cybersecurity analogy is perfectly apt. Hybrid warfare thrives in those exact gray areas. The ambiguity of a hybrid attack is engineered to create hesitation among the NATO allies.
Because it's not a straightforward invasion.
Right. If a border skirmish breaks out over what looks like local civil unrest, but it happens to sever that geographic hourglass we talked about, what does the alliance do?
Do they risk a global war over a murky riot in a border town?
Exactly. Does Washington or London risk nuclear war over a murky riot? If the allies argue, or if they delay or fail to mount a unified response, the adversary wins without fighting a major war. They have proven the mutual defense treaty is hollow.
And the entire structural integrity of the alliance just fractures.
Exactly. And the Suwalki corridor is the physical link connecting the Baltics to the rest of NATO. So testing unity here is a test of the entire alliance.
Wow. So because the threat is to the alliance's unity, NATO isn't just responding with infantry drills. The last updates show they are changing their entire structural posture, which is leading to some intensely high-stakes conversations.
It is a massive overhaul.
Because updates from May 26th show NATO is strengthening its eastern flank through a completely new structure. This allows rapid deployment of troops to Latvia and Estonia in the event of war with Russia.
That is a fundamental paradigm shift for the alliance. It means building the logistical pipelines to push massive combat power directly into Latvia and Estonia so fast that the adversary cannot achieve a land grab before help arrives.
But then on June 4th, Lithuanian Defense Minister Robertas Kanas spoke about classified negotiations with the United States regarding nuclear weapons.
Yeah, that takes it to another level entirely.
Here's where it gets really interesting, but also a bit terrifying. We just jumped from infantry brigades to classified nuclear negotiations.
Oh, yeah.
How does putting nuclear weapons into the conversation secure a corridor?
Well,
Doesn't that just turn up the temperature and risk sparking the exact conflict we're trying to prevent?
it is entirely rational to view nuclear rhetoric as destabilizing. I mean, when you introduce the ultimate destructive force into the equation, the stakes become infinite. But you have to look at this through the mechanics of deterrence. Russian doctrine has historically included a concept often described by Western analysts as escalate conventional step, but if the adversary believes that they can just jump to the very top rung, threatening a tactical nuclear strike, and you will back down because you lack a proportional response in that specific theater, well, the deterrence fails.
They found the loophole.
Exactly. So by combining rapid conventional deployment to Estonia and Latvia with these nuclear deterrence talks, NATO aims to close off any perceived vulnerabilities that a hybrid attack might try to exploit.
Discussing the most destructive weapons on Earth becomes the precise mechanism used to prevent their use. The logic holds together, but it creates a staggering disconnect when you look at the public statements from military leadership.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, with amphibious assault vehicles tearing through the mud, new pipelines for troop deployment being finalized, and nuclear negotiations happening in the background, it paints a picture of an alliance waiting for the starting gun of a hot war.
It really does look that way.
Yet on June 11th, the Supreme Allied Commander, Europe General Grinkovich, stated the exact opposite.
Yes, his assessment was quite definitive.
He explicitly stated that the likelihood of a Russian attack on Latvia, Lithuania, or Estonia is low. And he explicitly noted that Russia is not looking for a conflict.
Right.
I have to admit, looking at these last updates, my head is spinning. On one hand, we have Gallant Boar 2026 and nuclear talks. On the other, the top commander is saying, relax, Boar. Russia isn't looking for a conflict. How can both of these realities be true at the same time?
They seem mutually exclusive until you realize they are deeply connected by cause and effect. What you are observing is the core paradox of successful geostrategy.
The paradox of preparedness.
Exactly. The massive preparations of Gallant Boar 2026, the visible integration of French and Polish units, the deployment of K9 howitzers, and the signaling regarding the nuclear umbrella, these aren't contradictions to the low likelihood of an attack. They are the direct cause of it.
So the heavy artillery is the reason the peace holds.
Deterrence is fundamentally a mathematical calculation made by the adversary. General Grinkovich can confidently state that Russia is not looking for a conflict because he knows the Kremlin is running that calculation.
They are weighing the cost.
Right. They are looking at the Suwalki corridor. They are weighing the cost of a provocation against the readiness of the multinational forces. Right now, because the preparations are so robust and visible, the math heavily discourages an attack. The deterrence is currently working.
It's the ultimate manifestation of the Roman proverb, if you want peace, prepare for war. We lock down the narrow neck of the hourglass so tightly that no one even attempts to shatter the glass.
That covers the physical domain beautifully, but I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to ponder as you digest this deep dive.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've established that the Kremlin's true objective isn't territory, it is testing NATO's unity. And we've also established that the physical border, the Suwalki corridor, is effectively sealed off by the conventional might of Gallant Boar 2026 and the overarching nuclear umbrella.
The front door is deadbolted.
Exactly. But if the hacker finds the main firewall too strong, they don't simply quit, they look for a side door.
Oh, wow. A different domain entirely.
Precisely. If the Kremlin's true goal simply is to test NATO's unity and the military border is locked down tight, where will the next test of that unity happen?
That is a great question.
Could the real hybrid attack bypass the Suwalki corridor entirely and target our political or digital infrastructure instead? We might be so intensely focused on defending a 40-mile stretch of dirt that we miss a massive coordinated strike targeting our supply chains or our power grids.
A sobering thought to take away. We spend all our energy reinforcing the steel vault, but we might be leaving the digital windows wide open.
Exactly. Thanks for tuning in. If you found this discussion valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to the Geostrategic Podcast for more in-depth analysis on topics that shape our world. Stay informed, stay ahead, and stay tuned for the next episode. See you in the next one.